Okay, I'll call this meeting back to order. Thanks for your patience on that. And we are on item 6 with elected official and commissioner liaison reports. We've heard from Commissioner Weissong. We will move on to Commissioner Nelson.
Good morning. It's been a busy week last week and another busy one this week. I serve as the liaison to the Community Corrections Board, and I was able to attend their meeting last week and just get a better understanding of the work. And I'm so grateful for the individuals that participate and serve on that board. We are looking for we have a couple open seats. So if that is an area that you would like to serve our community, it's so important that we keep in mind the victims and ensuring we're getting justice for the victims, and then also the safety of our community as that board gives recommendations on whether to allow someone to come out of prison or be deferred and serve in the ComCore area their time instead. So if you're interested in supporting our community in that way, you can go to the El Paso County website and put in an application. I also serve on the El Paso County Board of Health, and Commissioner Geithner and I were able to get a tour of the on-site wastewater treatment facilities. So let me put that in layman's terms, we looked at septic tanks and got a better understanding of the work that department is trying to do with improving turnaround times for requests either for new development or rebuilds when someone's tank collapses, and they're really making efforts in that department to improve timing. And so I just appreciated being able to be outside some, but then get a better understanding of that aspect of the County Board of Department of Health and how they serve our community. I also had a parks orientation and enjoyed, again, being outside some and understanding how our El Paso County parks meet needs for our community and providing spaces to enjoy just the beautiful place that we live. Like I said, I was really busy. I was able to participate in a tour of the new Step Springs facility that is opening on Monday this week. They began to receive applications, and this is really exciting for our community because it is addressing the needs of our homeless populations and trying to help get individuals on their feet. And so a large percentage of individuals suffering from homelessness also are struggling with addictions. And this Step Springs facility started in Denver and has been operating up there for many years. Commissioner Geithner can maybe give us exact details. But they now are opening one here in Colorado Springs, and just helping to teach individuals, encouraging them to, maintain their sobriety, and then teaching them life skills on budgeting, grocery shopping, nutrition, all kinds of things, and then requiring that they pay part of their way so that they get that sense of self-responsibility. And then when they go out and are on their own, they aren't going to have sticker shock and not be used to having to pay their own way. But it is a minimal amount so that they are able to build up a savings. And so they want these residents in this community to go out and get a job and be taxpayers, and that they are contributing to society in that way. So really amazing work that they're doing at a very low cost per individual. It's around $5,000 a year in order to support these folks. And that's just incredible when you compare to other entities that serve in this space. They do not take any government dollars. They rely fully on charity and donations, and they are very outcomes focused, where they are tracking these individuals even a year or more later to find out how they're doing. Are they still are they still having a residence, not homeless again, and employed, and also repairing of relationships with family members. And so it's a really amazing program that is opening up in the springs here, as I said. And so if you know someone that close to you, just spread the word so that people can get the help that they need, because this is a successful organization that has proven over time and again that they're able to support people in getting on their feet. Tomorrow I have a Board of Health meeting and then an Opioid Abatement Council meeting in the afternoon, and I think that covers everything for me for last week and this week.
Commissioner Applegate.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Last Wednesday, I was at my quarterly oversight committee meeting for the Southern Colorado Rail Park. That it was a distant future of anything happening with that, and now it's looking closer to be in the near future. Just key is trying to keep all the entities on the same page: City of Fountain, City of Colorado Springs Utilities. But we'll look at that board. We continue to have oversight. We continue to have input from everybody that's in on that. So that is going to be 200 to 300 high-paying jobs, because it will be a rail yard, and there'll be a lot of contractors that'll be in and out of there, and some will be permanent on that site. Friday, yes, to echo what the other commissioners had said, we got to tour the STEP. That was very cool. It was recovery facility, and it was good to see that we knew they didn't need basically the government's help. They didn't need all that grant money and funding. They were able to do it through philanthropy. They were able to do it through local donations and help from the community. So that was very neat and very cool. Saturday, I was at the Citizens College at the end. Me and Commissioner Vice Chair Williams, we got to close it out and kind of give our 2 cents. The group that morning had gone through the jail. They'd gone through the coroner's office. They'd done all the different tours, and they'd kind of seen how all the different things from the county had worked. Some of them there was a couple of employees that were there for the tour, just wanted to learn a little more about the county, more than just maybe their HR department or their office job. And so it was very neat, and we had some really good questions, and I think everybody learned a lot, and it was a very interactive group. So it was good to see them, kind of see how El Paso County works and operates, and just the overall vastness. I think that was what had shocked me when I first got on this board. So, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Vice Chair Williams.
Well, I don't know as if I have much to add to what everybody said. So pretty much the same thing. We had a fantastic Citizens College that was organized by our Government Affairs Department, specifically Paula Lynn Harris. And 77 people signed up, very active. 13 people attended every session, I believe, but I was able to go and talk at the closing session on Saturday. Had a few interesting questions, but they were just really, really thankful for the opportunity to learn more about how our county government works. Attended the Step Springs facility tour. If you are a man in need of a sober living facility and ready to give up your bad habits, that facility is located off of North Park and Garden of the Gods, and it's willing and able to take you as you come in, and very, very successful, high success rate in Denver, privately funded. So it was a very fascinating facility. I'm looking forward to our budget hearings today. As I can see, our district attorney is here to present, and it's one of the fun days where we get to hear about the successes of his office and the great prosecution team he has. And that is all I have for today. Thank you.
I appreciate my colleagues mentioned many of the things that I participated in and will be participating in this week, including the Board of Health, the Opioid Council. The one addition to that is that I will also be at the regional building meeting this week. I really appreciated as well the tour that Commissioner Nelson and I were able to take with some of the folks from Environmental Services at the Health Department. Of course, I think it's not one that we think about a lot, but a very important one to make sure that we are appropriately dealing with all of the things that come along with septic systems, so that we can make sure that we are keeping our environment clean and safe for residents. So it was very informative, and grateful for the opportunity to learn more about our processes here and see that those processes are being improved for better customer service, in particular here in El Paso County. I also took the Step Springs facility tour. I want to give a huge shout out and thanks to the individuals who put together an opportunity for us to go and tour that facility former State Representative Dan Nordberg, and also Lynette Crow Iverson, Councilwoman Lynette Crow Iverson from the city of Colorado Springs, who put that together. And really gave us an opportunity to go and see that facility before it is fully opened for those who are seeking services. I think it's about 3 years ago now, Lynette Crow Iverson and I went to Denver and toured the Denver facility. And we were incredibly excited to hear that they were looking at opening a facility in our community. They've been asked by numerous communities about opening another facility because of those very high success rates. And I truly believe that this is going to have a huge impact on those in our community who are struggling with addiction. And so I just encourage you all, they will do tours, and if you are interested in seeing what our community is doing to be able to help these folks. I think it's also really amazing. Commissioner Nelson mentioned that they don't take government funding, that they are privately funded, and there are some very good reasons for that, so that they can continue to have sustainability for their program and not be pulled all the different directions that government sometimes wants to pull people with strings. So I just think it's a really phenomenal example of how the community can come together and provide those services, oftentimes even better than government can provide those services. So very encouraging to see that. And to your statement about how long they've been operating, more than 40 years in the Denver area that they've been operating with those phenomenal success rates. I also wanted to mention and thank the community for the wonderful Falcon Fall Festival at Smith Farms over the weekend. It's always a joy to participate in that, to see, for those of you who have not participated in that before, they do the giant pumpkin weigh-in, so farmers from all over the state of Colorado compete to see who can grill the largest pumpkin, and they are huge. They're over 1,000 pounds. Kids love seeing them. It's just really a unique experience. So it was truly a fantastic day. Got to chat with some of the folks over at Springs Rescue Mission who are always out there and always benefit from that event as well, with the help of the community. So just a really overall fantastic event, and was honored to get to participate in that. No pumpkin carving contest this year, which we'll have to carry the message back. I did see the sheriff out there, but normally we have a pretty big rivalry on the pumpkin carving contest. He's won a few years, I've won a few years, and maybe we'll see that revived. We took a year off this year. Maybe we'll get all of the creative juices flowing and be ready for next year. So with that, I will move to item 7.
Item number 7 is community service organization reports, and there are none.
Item 8.
Item number 8 is public comment on items not scheduled on the agenda. And Madam Chair, I'm unaware of anyone signing in to speak today.
Is there anyone here who'd like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? See no one coming down in the room, and we have no one online. So we will move to item 9.
Item number 9 is the called up consent calendar, and there are no items called up today.
Item 10.
Item number 10 is department and committee reports, non-action items. 10A, 2026 budget hearing number 2, department offices, critical needs, and citizen outreach group presentations. Nikki Simmons, Chief Financial Officer.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Nikki Simmons, Chief Financial Officer. We are here this morning to have budget hearing number 2, which is our critical need presentations, as well as a report from our Citizens Outreach Group. We have the morning scheduled for critical need hearings. You'll be hearing from departments and offices that are requesting additional funding in the budget. With one exception, we're also hearing from our district attorney's office, where they will present what they're doing with their budget and tell some of the accomplishments they've had throughout the year. Not too many updates for you since the last time you heard from me a couple of weeks ago. We did receive one additional month of sales tax reports in from the Department of Revenue, and those continued to be flat/steady with the projections that we have. So we're continuing through this budget process with the same preliminary budget that we presented on October 7th. Other than that, there's been no other material changes to anything that we're anticipating. So wanted to give that small update. Today we'll hear from our district attorney's office, parks, public works, facilities, and then our citizens outreach group. So I don't have anything further to add unless there's any other questions for me regarding the process. I just wanted to say that I appreciate the support of the commissioners. You all have been wonderful to work with through this process so far, and I appreciate all of the questions and looking into the budget. So if there's any questions for me, then I will introduce our Honorable District Attorney Michael Allen, who has a presentation for us.
Thank you, Ms. Simmons, for the introduction, and thank you, commissioners, for the opportunity to be in front of you again today to go over the accomplishments of the DA's office over this past year. I do want to apologize at the front end. I understand that there was maybe some concern why there were so many police in the building, and so you saw some of our investigators. I guess it's a good opportunity to just let, just to remind folks that the DA, deputy DAs, and our investigators are peace officers by statute. And they just wanted to make sure that we had a really good presentation. So they're here to hold me accountable, I think. But also, I think they were afraid of Nikki, maybe. So they're here to keep her in line as well. I want to thank you, Board of County Commissioners, for supporting the DA's office so steadfastly over my tenure as DA. Obviously we're not asking for any critical needs, so there's nothing in the budget that's going to ask for increase in expenditures to the DA's office, and that's because of the reality that we find ourselves in with just budgets across the nation, across the state of Colorado, and here locally with flat sales tax, and trying to be responsible stewards of taxpayer money. That's ultimately what this is all about, and this presentation, I think, is also part of that as well, and that is that it's really just an opportunity to be transparent about what we do in the DA's office, the accomplishments we have, and to just show how we're using taxpayer money to ensure public safety. So with that, most of you have seen some of these introductory slides, and I'm going to go through them faster just to save time, but I think you all have access to them separately. But the DA's office is created by Colorado Constitution and state statute. So we are part of the executive branch. We enforce the laws that are passed by the legislature and signed into law by the governor. What that ultimately means is that we don't get to pick and choose what laws we follow or don't follow. We take an oath to support the Constitution and the laws that are passed in the state of Colorado. This is our organizational chart. It's not really changed since the last time we were in front of you, with one exception. And that is at the last year's critical needs, we asked for an additional chief deputy DA position, which is second highest DA position in the office that's not elected. So it's DA, assistant DA, and then chief deputy DAs. So we added a fourth chief deputy DA position to better manage the resources in the DA's office. That chief deputy DA is, I think she's sitting down here. Where are you, Rachel? Yep, raise your hand. Rachel Powell. She is now our chief deputy DA over strategic operations, so running our organized crime unit, special victims unit, and some other responsibilities as well. But thank you for giving us that additional chief position. It does help with managing a big office that's doing a lot of really fantastic things. You've all seen our mission statement before. Put simply, it is to uphold public safety and ensure justice for our community. And then you've heard me talk about also the quote that we have in the building that some of you have seen that is right above our doors as you exit the building. And that is a quote by Martin Luther King Jr. that says, "The time is always right to do what is right." That's essentially what our mission statement says as well, although he's much more eloquent and timely in his statements than we can possibly be. You know about our jurisdictional boundaries. We serve 2 counties. We are the biggest judicial district in the state of Colorado now. The primary reason for that is, one, we've had a lot of growth here in El Paso County. El Paso County, as you know, is the largest county by population in the state of Colorado. But in conjunction with that, the 18th Judicial District, which is just far north now, it's really just Arapahoe County, but it also included Douglas, Elbert, and Lincoln counties previous to this year. So that used to be the biggest judicial district. With that split, now we are the biggest judicial district. And that's just by population. I think we've always been the biggest judicial district because we do more work than any of the other DA's offices, and it's not actually close. Population trends, I just mentioned we've had explosive growth over the last several years, but we've started to see that taper off a little bit, plateau a little bit, and that's true for the state of Colorado and here in the 4th Judicial District. So from 2020 to 2024, according to the U.S. Census, Colorado grew by just under 3%, and we are matching that growth here in 4th Judicial District. What's notable about that is that prior to recent trends, we were actually outpacing growth in the state of Colorado by a pretty significant margin. There were projections, and I think they still exist, that Colorado Springs will be the biggest city in the state of Colorado. Currently, we're the 2nd biggest city, and obviously what happens in Colorado Springs really affects the entire judicial district. We have lots of people that travel up to Teller County either to get further into the mountains or to go to the gambling establishments in Cripple Creek. What's interesting is that the 4th JD represents roughly 13% of the total state population. And what that ultimately means is that what happens here in the 4th Judicial District is significant. It means that what happens judicially in the courthouse on public safety, and judicial impact, political impact, we have a big impact on what happens in the state of Colorado. And we've started to see some of those fruits recently, and I'll talk about some of that. You've heard me talk in the past about partnering with law enforcement. Nothing about that has changed. I mentioned earlier that state statute says that me, the DA, the elected DA, my staff are peace officers by statute. That means we have the exact same authority as a police officer in uniform out on the street. We could do arrests and investigations, although that's not the way that we do our business. We leave that to our uniform partners, El Paso County Sheriff's Office and all the other agencies in the area to do that for us. But what's important to note is that the DA's office is the chief law enforcement officer in the district. Nothing can happen in the criminal justice system without it flowing through the DA's office, us taking a look at it and making sure that it passes muster on probable cause and all the proof requirements in a case, and then prosecuting it going forward. So we have a big say in what happens in public safety. It still remains true that we file more cases than other DA's offices that are similarly situated to us. Denver is typically a good comparison because the size of the city is roughly equivalent to Colorado Springs. And your DA's office here files at a much higher rate than the Denver DA's office. You may have seen an article fairly recently in the Denver Post that talked about stalking cases. And over the last 5 years, the Denver DA's office has filed somewhere around 120 roughly, or maybe 160 stalking cases, whereas we've filed over 650 stalking cases in that same time frame. The reason why that article came out is a news reporter, a weather person for Fox up in Denver, has a stalker. And that case had been presented to the DA's office, and they refused to file stalking charges. They filed misdemeanor violation of protection order instead of the felony stalking, despite hundreds of contacts over a several-year period, including the idea that this stalker was telling people that the victim was his wife and showing up at different events, giving her gifts and all kinds of things. And then finally, what really broke the camel's back for her is he showed up at her house at night when she was pulling in. He pulled up behind her. She was able to get into the garage, close the door, and then escape out the back of the house. And that was not filed as a stalking charge. Whereas down here, I think under those facts, we probably would have. But again, that's just to point out that without a strong stance from a DA's office, public safety suffers, no matter what kind of good work is being done by uniformed law enforcement out in the community. We've got a staff now of 259 total employees, or FTEs. What's notable, I think, here is that we have 56 volunteers over the last year that produced 9,279 hours of donated work. Our volunteers do a lot of work for us that often goes unnoticed, but it's important to point that out. And I've said this in the past, and I'll continue to say it until it's not true, but your DA's office is essentially the largest law firm in Southern Colorado. There's no other law building in Southern Colorado that has more attorneys working than this DA's office. and all of them are working on behalf of this community. You've heard me talk before about our intern to deputy DA program. This is a recruiting program that we started years ago, prior to really the difficulties in hiring that all DA's offices face today. But what's interesting about it is that we currently have attorneys working in this district from 33 different states of the country in 56 separate law schools over those 30 roughly states. That really signifies the reach that we have. We go to recruiting events all across the country to find people that, one, want to be in Colorado, but two, have a strong sense of justice and want to participate in that in this judicial district. And it has really helped us overcome the hiring challenges that have occurred since COVID and the anti-policing demonstrations and riots that happened in 2020, 2021. That did have an effect on us as well. Our court responsibilities remain the same: 20 district court divisions, 11 county court divisions, 4 juvenile court divisions, and then the 4 problem-solving courts. Again, the crown jewel for me in the problem-solving courts is our Veterans Trauma Court. It is designed to get people who have raised their right hand and swore to protect the Constitution, including up to and including their life, who have then suffered some sort of debilitating issue in their military service, and then they have now a criminal act that's associated with that disability. The Veterans Trauma Court is a model for the country, and we have people from all over the country coming in to study how we do our Veterans Trauma Court, and then they try to enact the same sort of program in their communities. We have primary assignments. County court is our misdemeanor caseload and really where our new attorneys start. So these are going to be misdemeanor cases, DUIs, a lot of domestic violence, thefts, that kind of thing. Our appellate unit is appeals, works on appeals for all of our cases. So if a court in county court makes a bad decision that we think is a bad decision, our appellate unit, working with the deputy DA on that case, will file an appeal to district court, so it'll stay here in the district. And then we'll get a decision to either reverse the decision and send it back or uphold the decision, what have you. But they do a lot of work, and it's a small unit. We've got Doyle Baker, who's been with the DA's office for a really long time. He's a senior deputy DA and then a staff below him. And they work on all, like I said, all of our appeals. Then we have our district court assignment. That's our felony caseload. That's the cases typically that make the news, although occasionally our misdemeanor cases make the news. It involves our special victims unit, which is a really difficult assignment to be a part of. That's where any sex assault case goes to, any child pornography case, child sex assault, stranger sex assault, any of those types of things. Because that material is so difficult to work with and it has such a toll on the human psyche, we try to keep people in that unit for 2 years and then rotate them back out. What's notable about our special victims unit currently is that our senior deputy DA, Kelson Castaigne, has got 7 years in that unit between the time when he was a deputy DA in that unit and now the senior running that unit. I think that speaks highly of his determination, dedication to those types of cases, and his resilience. It takes a lot of resilience to deal with that kind of material, see the things you see in that unit, and then still come back to work the next day and do it all over again. And then our organized crime unit, that, if you remember, was created out of our economic crime unit several years ago, and really is the tip of the spear in our fight against fentanyl and other organized crime and cartel activity. And then our juvenile prosecution unit has been staffed up, essentially. We used to have just 3 attorneys in juvenile. We now have 5, and that's a reflection of the growing trend with juvenile crime, the growing prevalence of violent crime committed by juveniles, and making sure we have the people that we need in that unit to handle those particular cases. And then felony intake is really what it sounds like. It's every case that gets submitted to us from a law enforcement agency comes into that unit. They look at it for potential filing. They also handle all discovery. And with the law changing over the last several years, body-worn camera now being worn by every uniformed law enforcement officer by statute, with the exception of our DA's investigators, who are by statute not included in that statute. It's a lot of material that gets turned over to us. So if you consider a domestic violence call out and you think that maybe 5 or 6 police officers show up and they're all wearing body-worn camera, and it takes an hour or longer to investigate and process everything, that's at least 5 or 6 hours of body-worn camera footage that has to be processed and watched by somebody in the DA's office and somebody in defense. The result of that is that prosecution has become more administrative than ever before, with all of the changes that have been enacted in the name of criminal justice reform over the last several years.
If I could just
Yeah.
ask a quick question
Yeah.
as you're talking about that. I know that there's a lot of discussion around AI and the potential for use of AI. Not that you would want it to completely replace, obviously, that human element, but are you looking at avenues where AI can do some of those pre-screening or any of those things to help relieve that administrative burden, or at least, assist?
Yeah. So there are companies that provide AI resources for law enforcement. For instance, Colorado Springs Police is contracted with Axon, a large national company, and that they process all their body-worn camera, photographs, lots of other things. There are AI resources within that programming that allow it to build transcripts of videos so that you can see lots of different things. We don't currently have a contract with them, but we're exploring getting on with them. It's expensive, and it's only going to continue to get expensive as time goes on. So yes, we're exploring that. You have to be careful with some of that stuff too. There are ways for AI to actually write reports for police officers out in the field. The danger there is that if they don't review it, that could really give some rich field to plow for a defense attorney who wants to rake somebody over the coals. So it really requires a lot of attention to it, making sure that the right things are being done with AI. But yes, there are tools, and we're exploring some of that. And I really appreciate that question, actually. Our secondary assignments, so these are piled on top of, the district court assignments or county court assignments. Our homicide and OIS on-call team, so that's a team that is on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day of the year. So anytime a homicide or an officer-involved shooting happened, a deputy DA will go out on scene with the law enforcement agency, not as a first responder, but as a very close in time second responder. Often we'll go to scenes and work with them, and we'll help them sort of navigate the pitfalls of an investigation, make sure constitutional protections are upheld and all those types of things. And then on the OIS part of that, officer-involved shooting, it's a slightly different process because we want to maintain our impartiality in our review of an officer-involved shooting. So say the sheriff's office is involved in a shooting, CSPD will generally be the lead investigation investigating that shooting, and then that presentation or that investigation will be presented to us. Our attorney will then digest it and make a presentation to me, and then we'll make a determination whether it was justified or not justified, or even potentially if there are charges that are supposed to be filed against a police officer. Lucky for us, we haven't had any that have gone down that path since I've been DA, but it could happen. And it's important to maintain that impartiality in that review process so that it is as fair as potentially possible, and so that the outcome is as good as it possibly can be. Luckily, we've got really good relationship and collaboration on those cases, but they're difficult. We often are asked to make some really difficult judgment calls, and the important part of that is that these judgment calls are being made with hindsight being 20/20. You really have to separate that hindsight being 20/20 and try to look at what the officer knew at the time of the shooting and what their impulses were, what were they reacting to, did they see or think they saw, and really try to get into that moment with them to make the best possible decision. Looking at it from that hindsight is 20/20 perspective will lead to pitfalls, and we've seen that across the country. We also have our vehicular homicide and vehicular assault on-call team. They are also on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and respond to any vehicular death that occurs or serious bodily injury case that occurs anywhere in the district. We have law enforcement liaisons that work directly with some of our law enforcement agencies, actually all of them. And then our animal cruelty unit. It's important to note there, especially when we look at what happened just in the last week with the CSPD canine that was attacked in a response on a domestic violence case. It was very apparent to me when I came in as the elected DA back in 2021 that we needed to be more consistent in our outcomes on animal cruelty cases, and starting an animal cruelty unit, getting training for those folks, and finding people that have a passion for those cases was really important to make sure that we were consistent, and we've done a really good job with that. Amanda Byrne, I think, is here. Where are you, Amanda? Yep. She has a huge passion for animal cruelty cases. She's got a ton of experience, though, too. So I had to break the news to her recently that she was going to have to move away from animal cruelty and get into some other cases just to help further her career. But she's done a fantastic job with those cases. Community engagement. We do lots of community outreach. I heard some of the commissioners talk about the Citizens College. We actually hosted a night for Citizens College just last week, and I think we had 60 some people maybe show up. It was a really good showing and lots of really good questions. I had one young lady at the end ask me a very direct question saying, the DA is elected. Do you think that's the right way to do things, or do you think it should not be an elected position? And my response was, whether it's right or wrong, is that having an elected DA allows the citizens to have a say in what's happening in the public safety sphere in their community. And so if people wanted to change it, they could, but they would have to change the Constitution in the state of Colorado and whatnot. But I do think that having a say from the citizens in what happens in public safety is important. If we had an appointed position as DA, it would be still politics would play a role in that appointment process, and it could swing wildly depending on who's making that appointment position. So I do believe strongly in having an elected DA. Neighborhood Justice Center. I don't think we have Melissa here, do we? No. So we have a lady that's running our Neighborhood Justice Center diversion programs, Melissa Allgood. She actually is a licensed attorney in Texas who moved up here and is not licensed in Colorado, although I keep trying to talk her into getting her license here in Colorado because she's doing such a great job. But she's done a really good job with our diversion programs and our neighborhood justice program. The referral process, well, let me back up. Neighborhood justice is a mediation process. So you're really putting the offender across the table from the victim and talking about what led up to whatever issue arose and trying to find an agreeable solution. This provides an efficient and cost-effective dispute resolution. The staff is comprised of full-time attorneys and volunteers, and we've had really high success rates through this program. 2023, 73% success, 2024, 77%, and then year-to-date in 2025, 76%. So it's a really easy way to resolve low-level offenses. What's important to note is that mediation is good for these low-level cases, neighborhood disputes, that kind of thing. But it would be absolute injustice to require people, like victims of sex assault or of a murder victim's family to sit across the table, although there have been plenty of pushes across the state to open up mediation to murder cases or sex assault cases or domestic violence cases. And that is wrong in my opinion, and I push back on that repeatedly. Our diversion programs are also run by Melissa Allgood. We've got a juvenile diversion program. It's important to note that we serve actually about 15% of all juvenile diversion cases statewide. So doing more than other districts in the state of Colorado. We've handled the most cases statewide from 2023 to 2024, and I'm pretty confident in saying it's likely that we'll also lead the state in 2025. These are focusing on first-time low-risk offenders, and we have an 85% success rate in juvenile cases and an 89% success rate in adult cases. They hold offenders accountable, offer education and guidance, and reduce the burden on courts and other service programs. It's also a good off-ramp for these low-level first-time offenders who probably just made a bad decision and find themselves in the criminal justice system, to give them the tools out of the criminal justice system and not necessarily throw the book at somebody, that if we can avoid that.
We have a question from
Yeah.
Commissioner Nelson.
Yeah.
When you're saying a 86 success rate, what does that mean? Is
It means that
they
they're-
don't have the recidivism of
Yes.
going out and doing it
Yeah,
again?
exactly. Yeah, it means they're not reoffending. They successfully complete the program. It can be fairly difficult to complete the program. They've got to do classes and all kinds of different things, maybe community service. So they've got to do that first. And then it also means they're not recidivating, so not reoffending.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If I could just follow up with another
Yeah.
question on this. I think this topic is really is one that's important, and I've heard a lot about over the last few years, is this growing number of cases in the juvenile space. And I know that it's very difficult to pin down. There's lots of factors, and we could probably have a long ideological conversation about why this is happening. But are there any concrete things or things that you have specifically seen that you think is leading to this?
So you're talking about concrete things that have led to rising juvenile offender numbers?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So one, the juvenile offender code by design is designed to rehabilitate juveniles. And so when you think about that design, you should think back years ago when maybe somebody threw a rock through somebody's window or there was a fight at school, relatively minor things. What we've seen is that the juvenile offender code has been watered down to a degree over the last several years through legislation. That includes bed space to hold violent juvenile offenders while they're awaiting trial. And then on top of that, we have seen now a response by offenders to encourage juveniles to do things that an adult would get in a lot more trouble for. So stolen vehicles or gun crimes, that kind of thing. And so I think it's all a reflection of that. It's also, I think, a reflection of when you look at stats of people that end up in prison, the number one determining factor is that somebody grew up in a home without a father present. So again, a deterioration of the nuclear family option as a raising option for juveniles. So when you have all those deteriorating effects, the fraying of the edges, the fraying of the fabric of communities, it leads to these types of things, in my opinion. It's a big social question and problem that needs to be addressed, much bigger than what the criminal justice system can provide.
And off the top of your head, are you familiar with the cases that we're seeing here and in Colorado compared to nationally? Are we kind of on trend, or is
Yeah.
there a difference?
Yeah, I would have to dig into that. I don't have that off the top of my head. Yeah. In our diversion programs, we've got the sexting diversion, 100% success rate, although very few cases. And sexting diversion, for those not familiar, is when a juvenile takes a picture of themselves, often without clothes on, and sends it to a boyfriend or girlfriend. That is technically sexting. It's also technically, depending on the age, it could be distribution of child pornography. But kids don't often understand the ramifications of that once you put a picture like that out into the world with social media and whatnot, that it's going to live out there forever in all likelihood. So this is a program that is really designed to educate kids and get them to understand the gravity of their decisions. Juvenile diversion, I've talked about. Minor in possession, so these are kids that are possessing alcohol. And then adult diversion, 89% success rate. Those are all really strong numbers to Commissioner Nelson's question towards reducing crime. It's giving people the tools to avoid committing criminal offenses in the future. And then restitution, in 2024, $744,232 was ordered in restitution, which is the number one restitution figure for the state of Colorado. It's important to keep in mind, it's one thing for a court to order restitution, it's another thing to actually collect the restitution. The state of Colorado has a difficult time doing that. They do put people through collections and they can garnish wages and whatnot, but oftentimes these offenders don't necessarily have resources, so actually recovering money in restitution is very difficult. But this is at least an effort towards recovering some of that money that victims have been, who have been wronged by criminal activity. We've had more than 50,000 victim contacts made over this time period, and that's equivalent to more than 200 victims per day having been contacted by somebody in the DA's office. That's a lot of work. It means that our victim support in the DA's office is working constantly to try to recover services for victims and to try to make them as whole as we possibly can. Colorado was actually number 5 in payouts to help victims compared to the rest of the country. What's notable is that the 4th Judicial DA's office, so your DA's office, served more victims than the entire state of Illinois. And we all know Illinois is a more highly populated state than Colorado. And we also served more victims than 19 other states. So these would be smaller states, obviously. But to do more work on behalf of victims in the 4th Judicial District than the entire state of Illinois, I think speaks highly of these folks and the folks that are over working in the courtroom and in the DA's office right now. and it really highlights maybe some failures in Illinois too. And you have to wonder why. In victim compensation for fiscal year 2023, we did $1,376,561 paid to victims. And that means that we provided more victim compensation than in this office than 32 other states and 3 U.S. territories. So again, we're doing more work on behalf of victims in this judicial district than entire states of this country, and more than half of the states in this entire country. In calendar year 2024, we did $1,155,000 paid to victims to provide support. And in addition, Senate Bill 24-120 was a bill that was designed to improve access to compensation for victims. And that was a bill that was supported by DAs around the state and including this DA's office. I want to get into some crime trends. It's important to note as I go through these crime trends that as you're seeing downward trending numbers, that's a good thing. Obviously, we want to see downward trending numbers for crime stats. But what we are really seeing is that we're sort of returning to the plateaus that were achieved prior to COVID and the anti-policing riots of 2020, 21, 22. So while it's down compared to recent years, it doesn't mean that crime is actually down compared to where it was prior to COVID and all of those sorts of things. So you can see the downward trends with homicide here. This is current as of October 10th, 2025. It's important to note too that Colorado Springs is the 40th city by population in the U.S. We have lower crime rates here in Colorado Springs than other notable cities that are similarly sized. So if you look at places like New Orleans, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, Miami, we have lower crime rates generally than those other places. So that again speaks highly of the law enforcement in the room and in this community and your DA's office. Aggravated assault trends. One thing I think it's important to note here, again, 2025 is still in progress, so we have incomplete data. But the idea that aggravated assault, so that would be an assault that's committed with a deadly weapon or that results in serious bodily injury, that it would be down in the state of Colorado, which is that blue line on top, would be down that significantly over this time frame. Means that there may be delay in reporting across the state, or that maybe reporting standards have changed in some places that are resulting in lower numbers. I think that for our numbers, which is the line along the bottom, we're going to be pretty consistently plateaued, similar to where we were last year. So when I see that we are sort of on a plateau locally, and then I see a dramatic dip on statewide numbers, it makes me question the accuracy of those numbers. But we rely on outside agencies to collect that information, CBI and other places. So we have to caveat these trends statewide with what potentially is actually happening. Juvenile to adult transfers. So this is, again, getting to that violent juvenile issue that I talked about earlier. So if a juvenile commits a violent offense and we want to try them as adult, if they're a certain age, we can just direct file it as an adult case. Or if they're under a certain age, then we can try to transfer them to adult status, and it requires a hearing, evidence to be presented, and a judge to make a ruling on that. 2024, we had a huge number of juvenile to adult transfer cases. And that was largely due to that rash of smash and grabs that we were seeing, where juveniles were stealing cars, largely Hyundais and Kias, ramming them into businesses, gun stores, marijuana stores, vape shops, that kind of thing, and then stealing lots of things. So a lot of those people were either prolific offenders or were committing really violent offenses. So we filed them as adult cases and prosecuted them that way. We are going to be this year higher than 2023, which is our last high, but not probably nearly anywhere close to 2024. Our benchmark comparisons, these are, again, comparisons that look at the top section is our office over the last 5 years, essentially, looking at filing numbers, declined cases, total cases processed, budget, population, and then total staff. What's interesting to note is that prior to 2022, you see that total filed number is 30,933 cases. And then that's dropped for us. And now we are essentially at our new normal, which is around 22,500 cases per year that we're processing. That's a reflection of a lot of things. That does not mean that crime is down. It just means that less cases are being presented to us and less cases are being filed. Still, we're filing over 90% of the cases presented to us like we always have. It just means that less cases are being solved for lots of different reasons that get into lots of statutory and anti-policing sentiment around the state of Colorado. If you look at the bottom box, that is a comparison between us and the other 5 large judicial districts in the state of Colorado. So the second is Denver, 18th is now just Arapahoe County, so Aurora. The first is Jefferson County and Gilpin County, so the west side of the Denver metro area. And then the 17th is Adams and Broomfield, so the north part of the Denver metro. If you look at the numbers, the 18th is a little bit hard to determine for 2024 because they were going through a split in preparation for this year. So it's hard to know if that 31,000 number of cases, total cases, is accurate or not. We think that there may be some double counting, but they could be accurate. I'm not entirely sure. But if you look at where we are in 2025 so far year to date, we are outpacing every other DA's office in the state of Colorado with filings. And I would guess that that will hold true for the entirety of 2025. Also, I think it's important to point out the felony cases, showing that Denver is roughly 600 felony cases ahead of us. I have doubts about that number. I'm not sure that that's accurate. A good example is that stalking example I gave you just a moment ago. When we're over 450 cases filed in just one crime category, it makes me wonder whether those numbers are accurate. Hard for me to know for sure. This is further benchmark comparisons just to show cost per case and cost per citizen. Again, this just indicates, again, the fiscal responsibility that we take seriously in El Paso and Teller counties and in your DA's office. It's important that we do as much work as we possibly can for as efficient a cost as we possibly can, and we continue to strive to do that year over year. And it takes support from our commissioners to do this. Obviously, we can't do anything without funding, and it requires great support from you all and great support from our Teller County commissioners, and we've received that, and I'm so grateful for that. Trials held. We are still a very trial-focused office. You don't see it on this graph because we try to keep it to a 5-year look back. But in 2020, it was a really low number. That was the COVID year where courts were shut down for most of the year. We've rebounded significantly. And then in 2023, set a new record for the office at 465 trials. We are going to, if we haven't already got to close to 400 this year, I suspect we're going to easily eclipse 400 again. Last year, there was a significant delay in getting cases to trial because the public defender's office computers were hacked and they were unable to go to trial for a significant portion of 2024. So we had a dip in numbers. Obviously, it takes 2 to tango. So if the public defender can't go to trial, that means we can't go to trial either. But we have significantly rebounded from those issues last year. And it's important to note, too, why trials are important. It is a unique way for the citizens of the community to actually sit down in a courtroom, watch the criminal justice system unfold in front of them, and for them to weigh in on what they think should happen on any individual case. And that has an impact on public safety. We generally get really good juries here in the 4th Judicial District, meaning that we're not afraid to take any case to trial. And it's a good litmus test for us to see the results that we get in trial. Do we win every case? Of course not. This is America, and people should have their constitutional protections upheld, and that's what the jury trial process is all about. But we always feel good about taking any case to trial, and we have really good success rates there. Domestic violence is another area that, you see that dramatic drop for statewide numbers. I have serious doubts about that dramatic drop when you look at the context of the previous 4 years, 21 through 24. We also know that domestic violence is just endemic. It's almost impossible to stop domestic violence in a society. Obviously, you can stop domestic violence in a particular instance between a couple or a certain group of folks, but it is really difficult to just totally stamp out. So to be 11,000 cases down statewide looks not accurate to me at all. I think we'll be fairly close to where we were last year at the end of this year, somewhere in that mid 2,500, 2,700 total cases. But domestic violence is endemic. It's also important to point out that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. That's why I've got a purple ribbon on my lapel here. And it's just really to bring awareness to domestic violence. The incident that CSPD K9 Rome was responding to was a domestic violence case. And they are really dangerous, dynamic incidents. Oftentimes, the offender can enact violence on police officers. There were several police officers were shot back east fairly recently on a domestic violence call out. It's all too common for domestic violence to explode outside of the relationship and affect other people. And that's certainly true of Colorado and true of the 4th Judicial District. Motor vehicle theft, you all know, right, that the state of Colorado over the last several years has been #1 in motor vehicle theft for the entire state, or the entire country, I should say, and #1 in a bad way, meaning that we were the worst with motor vehicle theft. That led to CATPA being created, which is a Colorado Auto Theft Prevention Authority. And that leads to 4 regions being designated across the state to house a dedicated prosecutor and investigator to handle regions. So the 4 regions are, one up north is in Larimer County, then Denver, and then Mesa County out in Grand Junction, the Western Slope, and then here in the 4th Judicial District. We've had really good success. I don't think Melissa's here. I don't see her. Melissa Bollig is our current CATPA prosecutor, and she's working closely with Metro VNI, so Vice Narcotics Investigations team, on motor vehicle theft to really have good outcomes in those cases. And we've seen some really good sentences come out of this effort, where we used to get maybe a handful of years on a prison sentence, and we're now getting double digits and sometimes up into the 20-year range on prolific motor vehicle theft offenders. And it is leading to a drop, significant drop, if you look at, again, the numbers that I have faith in are the numbers for our district at the bottom there. We are going to see a significant drop total for our district for this year as opposed to last year. I would ask, anyone know where we rank currently for the rest of the country? So we're now 4th worst in motor vehicle theft. So we've made some progress, but we've got a lot of work left to do. We are ranked now ahead of New Mexico, California, and Washington, D.C. So not necessarily shining examples of strong public safety positions across the country, but certainly it shows progress. And I would say the rest of the state should take note of what's happening here in the 4th Judicial District and enact some of those practices and really go after these really debilitating crimes for people that are poor. You've heard me talk about transparency in our data dashboards. Nothing about that has changed. We still have real-time public access to our data dashboards. People can get onto any time of the day or night. Now, for the part that I really always enjoy about this presentation, that is highlighting some specific work of the people in my office, and we're going to talk about some specific cases. So in 24 CR 1145, this was a homicide case. Victim is William Underwood, who's pictured there. He was killed as he left his own birthday party, and it really resulted from an online spat between himself, who called out somebody else who was a violent offender in the community, and then that person put out a hit on William Underwood, and the hit occurred as he was leaving his birthday party. Where's our trial team for that? I know Tony's here. Who else do we have? Yep. So we've got 3 people here from the William Underwood prosecution. You all may have heard of the defendant. His name is Derek Bernard. He's the one that was infamously involved in the sign burning incident with Mayor Yemi, and he is now serving a DOC sentence. What's interesting about this case is that Derek Bernard was actually in prison when this murder occurred. So even though he was in a prison setting, he was able to orchestrate a murder to occur outside of the prison walls and was successful in doing that. Tony and his team were able to prosecute Derek Bernard, and he was convicted of all counts and is now serving life in prison without parole sentence. His accomplice proved to be more difficult, although he was also convicted at trial and is also serving a prison sentence thanks to the work of Tony and his team. What's notable about this case too is that it was a case that was investigated by the El Paso County Sheriff's Office, and it was a cold case for several years. At the initial investigation, there wasn't a lot there for investigators to latch onto. It literally was William Underwood walking along the sidewalk and being gunned down, and the shooter jumping into a car and leaving. Not a lot of physical evidence left on scene. It took a lot of work from the sheriff's office and from Tony and his team to get this case to a point that it could be prosecuted, and it resulted in a really violent offender being held in prison for the rest of his life. And then double homicide. This is the UCCS shooting where 2 people were killed in the dorm room. Tony was on that. Who else do we have here from the? Yeah, we got a bunch of people here from the UCCS double homicide case. This was significant because it had a huge impact on our community. It certainly had a really big impact on the UCCS campus and led to lots of unrest there, lots of different issues. I was lucky enough to get on the trial with Tony, and we were able to get a conviction on this case. And the defendant was found guilty of all charges, now serving 2 consecutive life in prison without parole sentences. So the equivalent of, I guess, what we have today is a death penalty. He'll be there until he dies. But this would have been a case that a death penalty sentence would have probably been warranted. It was 2 people sleeping in their in a dorm room bedroom and attacked by somebody who really just wanted to kill them over minor disputes. But because of the factors involved here, under the death penalty that we had prior to it being repealed in 2020, this would have been a death penalty eligible case. And then in this case, 24 CR 1989, I've got the victim's initials up there. Who do we have from this case? So we got several folks here on that one. This is a case that really is sort of a nightmarish case. This is truly a stranger broke into a home where a woman was sleeping, and her face was forced into the pillow. She was threatened to not make any noises, and then she was sexually assaulted, raped. And then it was cold for 20 years before a CODIS DNA match led law enforcement to identify the defendant. And Kenneth Heddle is that person, and he was convicted at trial. But you can imagine the fear that woman held inside of her for all of these years, knowing that her offender still existed out in the community. And it really speaks to the dedication of law enforcement investigating this case, never stopping, and then the dedication of a prosecution team to then take a tough case to trial and getting a conviction. This defendant was sentenced to 24 years to life plus 24 to life, I should tell you, is an indeterminate sentence. That's reserved for sex offender type cases, and it's to encourage a sex offender to get the treatment that they need to get before being released on parole. It is very likely that this person will never be paroled, and I hope that to be the case, just due to the horrific and nightmarish fact pattern that exists in this case. And then domestic violence, I mentioned that earlier. Again, I've got the victim's initials listed as just GL, but what is so common in domestic violence cases is that when the victim finally decides that they've had enough, things ramp up in violence significantly, and that's what happened here. The victim notified the defendant that she was done with the relationship, she was going to move out, and then he attacked her, and it's on the screen there. Threw a can of soda at her back, hit in the face, slammed into furniture, and strangled. And then, once the defendant was arrested and charged, he then tried to convince her to not testify. And that goes back to the age-old sort of principle that if there's no face, there's no case, and that exists in domestic violence cases. Domestic violence offenders know that. If they can win the victim back over and convince them not to participate in the prosecution, it can lead to a dismissal of those charges. And that's what this defendant attempted to do. Thankfully, he was convicted at trial and is now serving a 364 days in jail sentence, which is the maximum sentence that you can get on a misdemeanor. I mentioned earlier some legislation that has really diminished our ability to hold people accountable. This is one of those areas. A Class 1 misdemeanor used to be liable for up to a 2-year in jail sentence. That was modified downward several years ago by the legislature to 364 days. And the reason for that is quite simple, and it gets back into the politics of legislation and decriminalization efforts by our legislature. And that is, if a sentence is 364 days or less, it means that somebody that is here illegally will not be deported by the federal government. So it was really an effort to overcome what would be potentially detrimental impact on people that are here illegally also committing crimes. That's an aside politically, but who do we have here on this case? Do we have anybody? Tony, we don't have any? Okay, so the attorney that prosecuted that case is actually in trial today. And then our organized crime unit, I don't think Angelina's here yet. No. She's in court. So Angelina Gratiano, she's our senior over our organized crime unit. She was actually listening to jail phone calls on a separate case when she heard information that led to search warrants being obtained and an arrest warrant being obtained. And these are the fruits of that effort. I'm not going to talk about who the defendant is, any of that, because I don't want to impact this pending case. But you can see on the screen there results of her actions notifying law enforcement, and then the cooperation that entailed from that going forward. So in the picture on the left of the screen, bottom right, you can see crystal methamphetamine in those 2 baggies, hundreds of fentanyl pills in those other baggies just above that. There's some cash in the top left corner, a big bundle of cash, and then a bunch of guns. All of these things were seized in the investigation and will be used in the prosecution. But it really goes towards the dedication of that organized crime unit to being that tip of the spear effort against fentanyl distribution and cartel activity here in the 4th Judicial District. In total, there were 2,364 grams of fentanyl seized, 421 grams of methamphetamine, 58 grams of cocaine, 51 grams of heroin, $15,000 in cash, and more than 20 firearms total, just in this one case. And this is just an example. We actually had another operation just last week that had even bigger returns on the number of drugs and guns that were recovered. So this is constantly happening here in the 4th Judicial District. It is largely a result of cartel activity. The people on the street end are maybe not cartel, but it is certainly getting here and being driven by cartel activity, which, by the way, relies on illegal immigration to pursue the ends of their evil ways.
Can I ask you,
Yeah.
I feel like this is underreported in our local media. I feel like we really have not heard about a lot of this activity. Do you get, and I understand that there's a limited amount that you can say about cases as they're pending, but do you think that the media is accurately reporting, excuse me, the amount of this that is happening here, or kind of what is your perspective? Because I don't feel like I hear much about this.
Yeah, so a lot of that is going to be by design. Obviously, when we're making seizures on pending investigations and cases, you don't want to impact any other subsequent investigation that's going to happen. That's why I'm not mentioning any specific cases or names or anything like that. But we also have to make sure that we protect their constitutional right to a fair trial. So we would love to share more of this information with the public, but oftentimes it's by direction of the DA's office where we say we can't really share these things because we don't want to impact somebody's prosecution down the road. So I think it's some of that. I wish there were ways to do better. You see in other states where the rules are different, the laws are different, statutes and the ethics rules are different, where prosecutors and police are able to share a lot more of this information. We just can't here because of the design of our ethics rules and state statute. Now I want to talk about some really fun things. Every year, Colorado DA's Council awards different awards for different people in the prosecution community around the state of Colorado. And this year, Tony Gioia, stand up, Tony. He's our chief of county court, chief deputy DA. He won the Robert R. Gallagher Prosecutor of the Year award. So one prosecutor for the entire state wins this award, and Tony was the most deserving person that I could think of to win that award. I want to tell you a little bit about why it's called the Robert R. Gallagher Award. He was a Pueblo native who joined the Marine Corps in 1954 and was paralyzed while he was serving from the waist down. He came back to Colorado and got his law degree from DU and then served as the elected DA in the 18th Judicial District for 28 years. So obviously before term limits. He is tied for the longest tenure DA in the state of Colorado. and really serves as a great example of the determination and perseverance of a prosecutor. And Tony certainly lives up to that, and I appreciate all of Tony's efforts to lead our office and to be a great example for the rest of the state. He was the lead prosecutor on that Derek Bernard case. He was the lead prosecutor on the UCCS case. And of notable point on the UCCS case is that we had to make a change on that lead prosecutor in early part of the year. So had to put somebody new to be that lead attorney. And I asked Tony to do it, and he was over the top exuberant about accepting that challenge, jumped on it at the last minute and got that case ready for trial, and obviously was successful at trial. Most importantly, though, he's an amazing husband and father of 4 young boys, as you can see in the picture. The funniest thing about the presentation of the award at the conference this year was the little blonde-haired kid that's being held by mom there was going up and down on the stage, pulling his shirt up, messing with the tassels on the flag, and totally distracted all of us from talking about the great things Tony had done. But it was just a great example of Tony and his family. And it really speaks to the support that a prosecutor needs to do the job that we do. And Tony certainly has that in spades with his beautiful family.
I'm just going to say, of
Yeah.
all the jobs and all the cases, I have to tell you, being a father of 4 boys sounds like it's right up there with the tough one. I can say that as the mom of 2 boys. But that's really phenomenal.
Yeah, it really is. And I tease him that he's trying to put together a little basketball team. So we need to get one more, Tony. And then next was Victim Advocate of the Year. Normally, the Victim Advocate of the Year is one victim advocate for the entire state of Colorado. But we were lucky enough to get 2 victim advocates named for this one. There's Coyette way in the back. I don't think Zaida's here, is she? So it was Coyette Hansen and Zaida Dominguez. Coyette's been in this office for a really long time, has worked some really big cases. She developed such rapport with victims that sometimes they even give her nicknames. So we had a southern gentleman come in who started calling her Coyote Hansen and all kinds of different things. And I think you still maintain contact with them, don't you? Yeah. Coyette and Zaida were assigned to the Penrose Funeral Home Return to Nature case, which still is pending. So I'm not going to talk a lot about the facts of that case, but it's just important to note the effort that they put in on that particular case. It is not a Victims' Rights Act case, so we are not required by statute to provide victim advocates on a case like that. But because of the gravity, the attention it created, the intense media pressure that it created, and the impact on the victims, it was only right that we were able to put 2 victim advocates on it. And they have fielded hundreds of phone calls, set up numerous in-person and virtual meetings to answer any questions that they've had, and have really helped these victims navigate what has been a very difficult time in their lives, obviously. They trusted a company to provide services for them. That trust was obviously betrayed to a degree that most people cannot imagine. And into the breach steps Coyette and Zaida, and they've been phenomenal victim service coordinators for them. They have been phenomenal representations of the DA's office. And I can't think of 2 victim advocates in the state of Colorado that can possibly even approach the work that they've done. So Coyette and Zaida, I want to thank you again for all the work that you've done. And then obviously this is our base budget. Again, we're not asking for any increases. Obviously, recognizing the tax situation that everybody's in, so we're not asking for any critical needs. We, again, support or appreciate all the support that the county commissioners give us and the work that Nikki Simmons puts in on the budget every single year to make sure that we have fiscally responsible budget here in El Paso County and that we're doing the things that we need to do to be responsible for the tax revenue that is raised from our citizens here in the 4th Judicial District. I want to talk a little bit about the challenges ahead. You've all heard me talk in the past about future court expansion. That is going to happen at some point. When it does, I just want to make sure that it's all on your all's radar so that it's not a surprise. But anytime a court expansion happens and there's creation of new criminal dockets, that has an impact on us. It's an unfunded mandate. So state judicial will ask for new courtrooms. They will pay for those court staff, their state employees, but they will not provide for staffing in the DA's office. And so we will have a request when that happens to increase staffing to handle those new responsibilities. Competency statutes have been in the news a lot lately, and that is a huge challenge that's ongoing currently. We need to fix the competency statutes. This is another area where we've had some erosion in public safety. But currently, we've seen a huge increase, over 1,000% increase in the number of competency evaluations being conducted statewide. It signifies a broken system. Currently, the state of Colorado is in a consent decree with the federal government to pay up between $10 and $12 million every single year because we can't get the state hospital system properly staffed in providing the services that it needs to. And it's having impacts on the criminal justice system. What happens currently is that if somebody is challenged for competency, meaning the defense attorney or the prosecutor or the judge thinks that the person can't understand what's happening in the criminal process, they will be evaluated for competency, meaning do they understand those things. We're seeing more often people being determined by evaluators to be incompetent. That will often lead to a second evaluation from a private provider. And when that second evaluation comes back as incompetent, then we will have a hearing to see, is this person truly incompetent? And is it possible that they can be restored to competency? So we had a case here in the 4th Judicial District where that process played out, and it was determined because of wording in state statute that the prosecution, it's almost impossible for the prosecution to satisfy the burden to prove that somebody is restorable to competency. And the only result by statute as it exists today is that when somebody's not restorable, the case has to get dismissed. And in this particular case, this was this occurred up in Monument in a McDonald's parking lot, middle of the day, where a fender bender occurred. The people in the car that was struck by the other vehicle realized that the other person was trying to get away. So the grandmother in that car got out and approached the vehicle and then was run over by the offender and killed in the McDonald's parking lot in front of her daughter and her grandkids. And that case was dismissed because of the failure in this statute. The Colorado DA's Council, myself, we have all weighed in on this issue. We're trying to fix it currently, but it really requires some really heavy lifts that I'm not sure that the state has the appetite to actually go forward on. And that is, we've got to fix the burden issue that I just talked about, but we also got to fix the state hospital, and that's going to carry a huge financial note. We all know where the state of Colorado sits currently with the financial difficulties and the upside down budget that we've got. So I'm not sure that there's a will or an ability from state actors to actually fix this in a way that needs to be fixed, but we've got to try. And I can tell you that as your DA, I'm working actively on that. In fact, I had a long conversation just last night about this issue. And then prosecutor accountability is coming back to the forefront again. And to give this proper context, I want to hearken back to police accountability bills. There were 2 of them in 2017 and 2019, I think were the years. And it was really designed to be very punishing towards uniform law enforcement agencies, so sheriff's offices, police departments. And it took away immunity for those police officers. Now they're subject to personal liability for doing their job. And this is why this is so important is everybody that is put into an elected position has immunity just for doing the job because we have to make really tough decisions. So think about a legislator who is weighing out whether to sign on to a bill or to support a bill. They have immunity to make those decisions. This prosecutor accountability bill, as it's being discussed, would take that away from prosecutors and would place every single decision we make in the crosshairs of potential personal lawsuits against prosecutors. I am very confident that we'll be able to defeat it, but it is going to be a very tough fight. It's going to take people from all walks of public service to defeat it. If we look back at police accountability, that had a hugely detrimental impact on police staffing that have only now slightly been able to recover from that. If something like this passes, you will see the same difficulties in prosecutors' offices. This is not about, as they call it, protecting ethical prosecutors. This is absolutely about changing the criminal justice system, making it difficult to staff and maintain a strong public safety stance, and to rewrite the way that society deals with criminal justice. So I will be coming to all of you to make sure that you all are aware of the issues on this as it develops, and to hopefully win your support towards defeating this prosecutor accountability bill. And then Chair Geithner, you mentioned the digital discovery issue and AI. That's that last piece, that digital evidence discovery and storage. We are exploring trying to get onto a contract with Axon, but that's going to be an ongoing challenge going forward. As I mentioned, the effort of prosecution has only become more administrative over time, and that's going to continue to be the case. And we've got to come up with solutions to really address those issues and look at all options. So we're looking at Axon and seeing if we can work out a contract with them as well. So that is the conclusion of my presentation. I want to thank everybody from the DA's office for being here. The reason why I like to bring them over is so that you all get to see some of the faces in the DA's office. In years past, most of you probably didn't know who was in the DA's office, what kind of work they were doing, and it's really just an opportunity to get them in front of you, to see those faces, and for me to talk about them. I'm so proud of the work that they all do. They are selfless public servants. They often do things under the radar, and they're doing really fantastic work on behalf of these citizens to hold the line on public safety. So thank you.
I will see if we have any questions or comments. Commissioner Applegate.
So District Attorney Michael Allen,
Yes, sir.
remind me again, what is your murder one conviction rate, and are you still ranked highest in the state? I need to know.
Yeah.
Let's put it for public record.
So are you asking about my specific
Yeah,
conviction?
for fourth judicial,
Okay,
because
well-
I know you at one point were the highest ranked in the state.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, we still are.
Okay.
I would have to look that up specifically for murder.
Okay.
But I can tell you that personally, I've never lost a murder case, and this office does really good work on murder cases. Recently, so let me back up to tell this story. Every murder case that occurs here in the 4th Judicial District, if we're going to offer a plea agreement, that is staffed directly with me, and I have to give an okay on what that potential plea offer is going to be. It's not uncommon for defense to meet with our assigned prosecutor before that meeting occurs to give mitigation. So they'll often tell us, any issues that maybe we're overlooking in a case. One recent mitigation effort, they had stats for the state on what other offices are doing on plea offers in murder cases. And what was interesting to me, and I was actually proud of this, is that our offers are always about 8 years longer than any other DA's office in the state of Colorado. So we're holding the line on making sure that people that are taking lives are going to prison and going for as long as we possibly can put them there.
Good.
Yep.
And to kind of echo that too, like a comment, I think a perfect example is like when you look back at Casey Anthony and then like Letitia Staunch, the reason why Letitia Staunch is in prison for the rest of her life is because we have a DA and a DA's office like 4th Judicial, and we have your leadership, and we shows you that when there's experience behind this, it's like you're going to lock criminals up for the rest of their life. And unlike the Casey Anthony case where, allegedly she did it, but we think we know in our heart of hearts what happened there, and that
Yeah.
DA didn't know what they were doing, and they just made a lot of mistakes, and she ended up kind of just walking scot-free pretty much.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so I thank you and I applaud that for locking up the murderers and the killers.
Yeah, thank you. I do want to point out, since you brought up the Stout case, that requires tons of collaboration and good work from the sheriff's office, who was lead investigative agency, the FBI. Lots of players were involved in that case to give us a good enough case that we could then go forward and go to trial and get a good, strong conviction on it.
Vice Chair Williams.
Yeah, I just wanted to say congratulations to Mr. Joya and I'll
Coyote.
call her Coyote.
Coyote, yeah.
Because I can remember that. Just for all of the hard work, I always enjoy hearing about the cases and seeing the faces, because I know that what you do really goes unrecognized, and you're just a lot of employees in a building across the street that the elevator doesn't always work in. And we joke about the elevator a lot, but it's amazing all of the work you do to pull these cases together. And just with the staff you have and the small budget you have, I'm married to an attorney. I know how much it was to pull a case together back in the day when he was doing employment law, and you're doing amazing work. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. And Commissioner Williams, I do want to say, since you brought up the elevators, they are much improved. And I also want to point out just the great support we get from Brian Olson and the facilities crew. Brian was actually over in our building yesterday. We had a small fire. Somebody tried to cook their lunch and it caught on fire and led to us being evacuated. But Brian was over there right away to support us and make sure that we were taken care of.
There's so many things, so many
Yeah.
questions,
Yeah.
but
It
Commissioner
was a
Wise-
100-man lunch, if that was a question.
Commissioner Weisong.
If you could change to slide 8.
To slide 8, sure. See if I can get it to, for some reason, it's not responding to me. Oh, there we go.
I just wanted to say thank you to what you've been able to do, the people that are here in person, but make sure that all of your staff, 93 attorneys, sworn investigators, 140 support staff, et cetera, all the volunteers, please pass on our thanks for all the hard work that you do.
Absolutely, I will. Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Nelson.
Since you're on the slide, I was wondering, can you give some examples of what the volunteers' work looks like?
Yeah. So some of the stuff they do will be listen to jail phone calls. It could be working through files. It could be all kinds of different things. We had some volunteers recently that were working with our crime statistics unit and looking into homicide cases and whether those people were under any sort of pre-offense confinement. So were they on probation or parole or under a protection order? That work is ongoing. But they do a huge variety of different things, helping with restitution team, all kinds of different things. So it's really work that has to get done and couldn't get done if we didn't have these volunteers. They really do a great job of augmenting our paid staff.
Wow, I'm really struck by how important that work is and how meaningful that it could maybe be a little mundane listening to phone calls, but that they need to be clued in or be able to use things to help build a case and how important that is. So thank you to those volunteers.
Yeah.
And if someone's interested in supporting in that way, how should they contact you?
Yeah,
all?
they can just reach out to us directly, and I think there's a link on our website for volunteers, but they can just call us as well and get dialed in. What's good is it can be very mundane listening to jail phone calls and other types of phone calls, but it's also really remarkable how loose lips criminals can be. And so they talk about lots of things in their jail phone calls, as you saw with the drug busts and gun busts that we had. That was from jail phone calls. And so it's really important work that really requires a keen ear to pick up on some of the things that they talk about.
Yeah, super interesting. I just want to say thank you to you and your team for all of the hard work that you put in sitting and listening through that Community Corrections Board meeting last week. I already was a very strong public safety advocate, but man, I feel like I have a fire lit under me of just hearing some of the victims and how they repeatedly have to come back and advocate for justice for their loved one because of the individuals are able to come every 6 months and request, to be sent through this pathway instead. And also struck by hearing about some of the cases and someone only getting 10 years. And so all that to say, whatever we can do or whatever I can do in this position to support efforts at legislation and pushing back or, advocating for people to be held accountable and have the consequences for their actions. And yes, we want people to be restored and make different choices and be able to enter back into society and be contributing, but that it is in balance with accountability. And so just if there are things, that we need to help advocate, let us know. And then similarly, funding wise, this is a core function of government, in my opinion, and where taxpayer dollars should be focused. And so just so you all know where I stand on that it does need to be a priority in the budget.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'll definitely keep you in the loop on anything that maybe you can help with.
Oh, actually, can you, if you find that those Colorado numbers all of a sudden are updated or whatever it is, can you just offline let us know?
Sure.
Or because I would be curious
Yeah.
to know, like, are they just not caught up with reporting or what is going on? Is it they've redefined things? And so if you get clued in on any
Yep.
of that, I would love to hear.
Absolutely.
Just so that because it's concerning that someone could then try and say, like, oh, we're actually safer now, but maybe that's not true.
Yeah.
And they're just redefining things.
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks.
I will just add as well, great comments from my colleagues. Really appreciate that. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. There's a lot of context that comes with all of these numbers. And I think that is something that struck me as we were thinking about this too, was all the ways politically that things can be spun, or the ways that we can hear from lawmakers about why something is good or why something is bad, but there's so much context that's involved. It reminded me of how important representative government is, where there are the Michael Allens and all of the commissioners that we are able to put as much attention on doing the hard research and understanding the full context of policy decisions. Because in a snippet, it could be very difficult to be misled or move one way or the other based on a fact that without the context of the entire way the system works. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share all of this with us today. I hope so many people come and watch this and understand the full context of that, but I know that people are also very busy doing their day-to-day, raising their kids, working. And so, it just reminds us how important that representative government is, that we are here learning about this so that we can represent them well and make good decisions on policy. And I just wanted to express my extreme gratitude for the entire team and what you do. It truly is phenomenal. I know you probably don't get enough thanks for the work that you do, but just knowing that this community works so hard, that you all in the DA's office community work so hard for the rest of our community, that we can walk out of our homes and drive to work and do the things in safety because of the work that you do. I'm just so overwhelmed by just the wonderful people that there are in this community doing that work. So thank you, Michael. You always do a fantastic job. And I'm going to say, because we're talking about the budget today, thank you for your comments that you made too about looking out for taxpayers. It's not easy to balance all these things. On one hand, we can say this work is incredibly important. There should be no limitations on the work that we do. But the reality is that's not how the world works. We have to make sure that if we're going to be able to continue to do the great work that needs to be done, that we're fiscally responsible. That's a huge key component. And I thank you for your awareness that we're in a stage where our revenues are more flat, and being thoughtful about how you can make the most. You always do, but especially in a year like this year, so that we are not in the situation that we are seeing with other local governments where there are layoffs or furloughs or those things that obviously impact the service. So steady as she goes here. I'm proud of the work that we're doing, and I thank you for the partnership, because it would be all too easy to come up and just say, yeah, but I need it. And you really work with the county to make sure that we are all working together as a team. It's a team effort in our community to make sure that we are able to utilize every tax dollar to the greatest extent possible. Thank you for your work.
Thank you. I appreciate those comments. Thank you, commissioners.
Commissioners, I just had one additional follow-up comment to District Attorney Allen's presentation, and that is that during his presentation he mentioned that he upcoming will most likely have a need for another judicial or DA division to support another judge. I wanted to let you all know that that is in our 5-year forecast, to make sure that that can be funded. When and if we get to that point where the state of Colorado allocates another judge. We're also, administration's in close contact with the court system and the chief judge over at the 4th Judicial District to ensure that we're in the loop on when that judge might come and be available for El Paso County residents. So that is all I have to follow up on that.
Okay, with that, I know we are scheduled for a break here. We're just a few minutes behind our schedule, so I'm going to suggest that if there's no objection from commissioners that we take a 10-minute break rather than a 15 break, and we'll come back at 5 after 11 to begin the next presentation. There's no objection to that. We will be in recess until 11:05. I'll call this meeting back to order. We are still on item 10A, and our next individual is going to be Mr. Todd Martz.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity and the consideration for the Parks Department critical need. We're going to see who can go fastest, and so I've started the timer. Hopefully I can go through this pretty quickly. I know a lot of you are familiar with the Parks Department. Appreciate getting to know Commissioner Nelson more and sharing some of the good work that we do. Our strategic plan goals, our statement now is El Paso County Parks creates a vibrant community and improves the quality of life by providing parks and recreation, educational, and environmental stewardship opportunities. We try to meet Objective 1 with infrastructure, sustainably fund, manage, and improve the department's infrastructure. Objective 2 for service quality, responding to our growing community. And Objective 4, strengthening the community well-being. Our critical need request is at the Bear Creek Regional Park Tennis Court project. It is for $800,000. The total project's estimated at a little over $2 million, so about $1.2 million will be coming from the parks budget, and our request from you today is the $800,000. This is a breakdown of how the project would go. Project engineering and design, we're already looking at doing the scope right now, so we're putting that together, and we're estimating about $200,000. It's not just for the tennis pickleball courts, it's for the whole complex, and so it's a little more complicated. The pickleball courts itself with the tennis is $750,000. We've got a pretty good idea for that amount because we've done some courts recently. And then the archery range. Many of you might not have seen that archery range, but one of the things that I pride our department in is finding the niches that nobody else is doing for the public. And I think archery within our community is something that is a need, and there's not a lot of places that people can go and do it. So hunters use our archery range frequently to sight in their bows to get ready for bow season, but a lot of families, all those movies with youth and young ladies that did archery really did grow the sport, and we get a lot of people coming out to the archery range, and it's decades old, and I'll show you some pictures, but it is in need of some replacements. Another thing for this project is a renovation for the playground, which I can show you, and the parking lot, which is not very glamorous, but it's really needed. We need to make sure that we're respecting the private property within Skyway and not having people park up and down the street. We need to provide good parking spots. And with the popularity of pickleball and the tennis courts, we're running out of parking. So the justification, I think that picture kind of speaks the whole thing. This is kind of where we're at. This is a tennis courts that we've got on one side. They're unusable and embarrassing. There are 2 tennis courts on the far end that are usable, but even they are getting tough to play. And as you know, when you're playing tennis, you need a smooth surface. This is our archery range. We have patched and painted. Every year we go back and we do that, but it's at the point now where it needs to be replaced. This is the whole complex, and so I'll start at the upper right. You can see the 4 tennis courts that remain. The 2 on the right are the ones that are the worst tennis courts, and then the 2 on the left are still playable but need to be resurfaced. And then what the alternative is on the other side, you can see the pickleball courts. We really are one of the best pickleball courts in the community, and people can come play for free. There are opportunities for round robin, and there's a nonprofit that uses our pickleball courts daily. Moving down to the bottom left is the archery range. And so it's set up on the side, but it's you can see it's got different layers, and so people that are beginners can shoot, but people that are a little more experienced, there's a depth of field. And then the parking lot in the middle and the playground, you can see in the right in the middle, is right next to the tennis courts between that and the playground, and it's not a great spot for location. It's got a bit of a drop on both sides. How does this align with our strategic plan values? Service quality and accountability. The county is committed to being accountable and service-focused, ensuring that public spaces remain safe and functional and accessible. And I can tell you that some of these are not safe and accessible right now. The current state of disrepair negatively impacts the quality of the services offered, and upgrading these facilities will improve service quality and ensure efficient use of county resources. Community trust and engagement, the strategic plan emphasizes this too. the park is heavily utilized by the public space, and its ongoing deterioration erodes trust in the county's ability to maintain essential recreation services. Renovating the park aligns with Objective 3 with community trust. Economic development and sustainability. The economic development mission focuses on leveraging resources for community development. Investing in Bear Creek Regional Park supports this by enhancing local recreational infrastructure, which contributes to the economic activity through tourism, sports events, and increased park usage. Additionally, the modernization of the facilities will reduce ongoing maintenance costs. We won't have to keep patching. It will be able to maintain itself for many, many years. The base budget, and you can see where we're at right now with Nikki's help. We have got a little over $5 million from general fund. This would be an additional $800,000 up to $5.8 million. And then we also have community services restricted, which is the regional and urban park fees and conservation trust fund that we will be putting towards some projects in 2026. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions or comments, or you want me to go back to any of these slides?
We'll start with Commissioner Weissong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the things I just wanted to point out, the request for the $800,000 to help fix the tennis courts and build out the pickleball. There's also a potential good chunk of money coming from the Pickleball Association, which will, give you a little extra if it comes to fruition. But the nice thing is they're willing to do it, and hopefully it will happen, but it will just be a bonus. So you do have a lot of community support. And
Just
thanks,
heard from
Doc.
them this week, and they're on board for providing a check once we know this project is moving forward for
Great.
$100,000.
For how much?
$100,000.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Applegate.
I wanted to ask here, it does say, so you said with the pickleball and the tennis courts, remove lighting? You're talking about on the court itself, you're going to take lighting out, or?
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm just confused by that.
We are not going to put the lighting. There's old lighting still in there, and we're going to take that out. It's not usable right now, and we're not going to have night tennis at this time.
Okay. So basically just to help set the park hours. So like if it closes at 5 or 6, when it gets dark, it closes at 5 or 6.
And they're vandalized. So
Oh.
if we take the lights out, they won't be able to break them.
Okay. Well, maybe that's a good thing then. Thank you.
Okay, doesn't look like we have any additional questions. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being here and presenting this to us.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to move to the Department of Public Works. Mr. Ladley.
All right. Good morning, Commissioners, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, Jack Ladley, Director of Department of Public Works. Thanks for this opportunity today. Today, I want to walk you through the Department of Public Works critical funding request for 2026, and specifically how we can protect and strengthen the investments already made in our infrastructure, our roadway system. Okay, our most pressing need is a $7 million increase for a paving and preservation program. And it's not lost on us, the significance of what we're asking for. The county maintains over 2,300 lane miles of roadway. Currently, we receive about $16 million a year from PPRTA. $3 million of that, and again, this is an average, generally gets pulled for concrete, pre-overlay concrete, and ADA issues. We take $13 million of that PPRTA money and apply it directly to our paving and preservation program. Couple that with the $5 million that we have in ongoing programmatic funding through Road and Bridge. This $7 million request will also go directly into our paving and preservation program, bringing our programmatic funds for paving and preservation to $25 million. This additional $7 million would bring our overall road and bridge budget to just under $40 million. That level of funding ensures that we can maintain and even improve current pavement condition indexes. Without it, our system slowly begins to degrade, meaning that we spend more later to fix what could have been preserved today. This program isn't operating in isolation. It directly supports the county strategic plan and our strategic asset management plan. It touches every key objective: infrastructure, service quality, health and safety, and community trust. We're optimizing asset life cycles, strengthening fiscal management, and improving service delivery, all using innovative techniques like Cape Seal, microsurfacing, and wide crack repair. These are modern, sustainable practices that stretch taxpayer dollars while keeping our roads safe and reliable. The results of your past investments speak for themselves. Our paving and preservation program have been recognized by the Colorado Asphalt Paving Association as best in class for both preservation and paving, not just once, but multiple years in a row now. We've seen measurable progress in pavement condition as well. Our system-wide PCI has improved from a 68.6, which is a fair rating in 2023, to 70.7 in 2024, and we're on track for a 72 in 2025. That kind of improvement doesn't happen by chance. It's the result of your support, data-driven prioritization, consistent funding, and strong field execution. This slide is a quick look at our paving program and what that means on the ground. The number of lane miles we're paving and preserving continues to grow thanks to innovation and efficiency gains. But it's important to understand every additional dollar translates into more miles treated, longer pavement life, and fewer costly rebuilds down the line. This next slide is our preservation program, and this is where we protect what we own. Preservation work like microsurfacing, Cape Seal, wide crack repair costs a fraction of full reconstruction. Every dollar we invest here saves $4 to $6 down the road. I kind of equate it to it's the difference between changing the oil in your truck or waiting until the engine seizes. It's the same principle, it's just 2,300 miles of pavement. In short, the preservation program is where fiscal responsibility meets performance. This chart illustrates how different funding levels affect our long-term pavement condition. At the current funding rate, we're just keeping pace, but not gaining. The additional $7 million would move us into a sustainable trajectory where the system's overall PCI would continue to rise and not fall. It's also worth noting that inflation and materials costs continue to eat into our buying power. Even maintaining today's production levels costs more each and every year. Without an adjustment, the gap between what we can do and what we need to do will widen. This slide, I think, further illustrates how materials pricing affects our outcomes. From 2019 to 2024, materials costs have increased on average about 50%. That means that even with stable budgets, the number of lane miles we can treat shrinks each year. Our team has done an exceptional job of finding efficiencies, but at some point, cost increases outpace our innovation. And if we want to maintain the same service level residents expect, we have to account for these fiscal realities. I'll close by saying this: our goal is simple: protect the public's investment. We've proven the effectiveness of our approach. We've got the data to back it up, and we've demonstrated real-world results that residents can see and feel every day. With continued support, we can ensure our road network remains one of the county's most valuable and visible assets. And thank you, and I'm prepared to take any questions you might have.
Commissioner Weissong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Jack. You're going to need to make a modification on your first slide there, because now you have over 2,400 miles, not 23.
Correct.
That's a big deal. Want to make sure we're getting all the power we can from our basic numbers. On slide 7, if you could, where is that additional $7 million? How does it fit in this graph?
So as it stands right now, with the $13 million that we have in PPRTA funding, which will go directly to paving and preservation, plus the $5 million that we have ongoing in road and bridge funding for paving and preservation, that bumps this number from the 20 million up to 25 million, roughly, or 18 million up to 25 million.
Okay, so you're projecting out then that you're going to be moving, would you still be considered in a sector satisfactory?
We will.
Or would
We'll be in the satisfactory range, somewhere between a 72. And I would anticipate that we'll at least, with this additional funding, move our PCI up at least 1 point, potentially more.
Okay, great, thank you.
Commissioner Applegate.
You may not have this answer offhand, but just you can get back to us later on a later date if need be. You said materials cost keeps going up, as we know. Asphalt, oil-based product, concrete's not getting any cheaper. Aggregate products. About what's the percentage of increase you're seeing? Like I don't know, like even-
Across the board.
like with asphalt and concrete, especially like you're saying your materials. What's your materials?
It
cost
is. Our
you?
materials costs are going up about 50%.
50%.
Yes, well, I should say since 2019 on an average annual basis. We have contracts in place now that currently hold those increases to a nominal level. However, when those contracts expire, we could potentially see an increase, a continued increase. One of the other things that is increasing over time are equipment, manpower, some of the additional items that go along with paving or go along with concrete work. We're also seeing an increase in those costs as well.
Okay. When does our next contract expire for your materials?
I think we have I take that back, 2 additional years on our current contract.
Okay. All righty. Thanks, Jack. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Nelson.
Can you go to slide 4? And it's just an acronym that I need to find. AFR?
It's our additional funding request, this process.
Oh, okay. So this doesn't show what we're currently allocating out of the general fund on that, or it should, shouldn't it? That
It does,
25
it
million
does. And so what
accounts?
you'll
Okay.
see is we'll see our PPRTA funding and then the additional funding request. Prior to this year, we have not had a road and bridge amount that we were applying to our paving and preservation program specifically.
Say that again? Prior to this year?
Prior to this year, we have not had a funding from our road and bridge account that we were specifically applying to paving and preservation. So we were relying on additional funding requests and PPRTA dollars.
Where was the road and bridge funding going? To building new?
We
Versus
have
preservation?
many areas that road and bridge funding is used on. It's used on our graveling programs. It's used on our dust abatement programs. It's used on asphalt repair programs outside of our preservation program. It's used on bridge maintenance and construction, snow and ice control. It's used across the board.
And I know I have an orientation that I still have to do with you, so I'll probably understand more after
And we
that,
look forward to that.
time. I look forward to learning more. And the next slide.
If I could interrupt, because one of
Okay.
the things I want to make clear on this is when we look at our paving and preservation, it is a program that we do. It's just one of many programs. When I say we haven't had road and bridge funds applied to this, we didn't earmark those funds. This year we have, but we have continually, every time that we find that we have additional funding, additional bandwidth through our budgeting process, those additional dollars go into our paving and preservation program. And so while you look at the programmatic funding on this slide, this is what we scheduled, may not necessarily be all that we spent. And so when we look at 2024 as an example, we had scheduled $25 million, but anywhere that we found additional funding, anywhere that we might have underspent, we poured those dollars into our paving and preservation program to get as many lane miles done as we can on an annual basis.
I appreciate that we're prioritizing when there is that funding available of one-time dollars, putting it towards roads. I mentioned earlier, public safety is a core function of government and the taxpayer dollars. So we're taking care of our infrastructure and our roads, in my opinion. So I'm glad that
Absolutely.
that's a
And
priority.
everything that we do is focused on our roadway infrastructure.
Yeah. What, when you talk about the pavement condition index, maybe you said this and I missed it, I'm sorry. What is the goal?
Our goal would be a 1-point increase on an annual basis.
So
I
what
think
is-
it's unrealistic to think that we will ever get to the good state.
What
And when
number would be?
I'm thinking if we could get between a 75 and an 80 as our payment condition index, we would be doing amazing. I've rarely seen in 40 years of doing this, I've rarely seen a county or municipality have a PCI higher than that. Yeah. And so I think that's a good solid number for us to try and approach.
Can you go to the next slide? I just want to make sure I'm understanding this chart.
Is this the slide?
Yeah, this
Okay.
one.
So what you're looking at here is just a spread of the mileage that we were able to get done in 2025 compared to 2024. What our total lane miles were during that time, 2,410 lane miles, and so we touched just in paving nearly 3% of our roadway network, which is quite remarkable. If you go to the next slide, if I may. You can see what we touched in 2025, what we touched in 2024, but then 7.3% of our total network in 2025 we touched. So overall, we touched nearly 10% of our roadway network in our paving and preservation program, which is very remarkable.
So on the previous slide, is that new that we had dirt roads and we came in and put asphalt? Or
No,
okay.
these are either overlays or preservation on existing asphalt roadways.
So how is this different than the next slide?
So the next slide, we talk about preservation. So the previous slide was all about paving. And so when you see a mill and an overlay, a mill goes in, they mill off that top surface of the asphalt, and then they overlay with new asphalt. Our preservation program can be anything from a chip seal with a cape seal on it. It can be wide crack repairs, just any number of preservation treatments that take the existing pavement and extend the life of that pavement. As I'd mentioned, almost like changing the oil in your car,
Okay.
doing what you can to extend the life of that pavement for as long as possible.
Okay, thank you. And then I know you and I've discussed offline the challenges with stormwater and that the funding availability for just that aspect, because it's great to come in and repave, but if you don't account for taking care of that runoff, then it starts to erode that pavement. And so I know that can be a challenge
Right.
as well for your department.
It is. And so if you take a look at concrete, as I'd mentioned, concrete curb and gutter is an example. If you think of our roadways as a system, you have the road itself, then you have that concrete curb and gutter in some cases you don't. Some cases it may be roadside ditches or drainage ways, but all of those work as a system to protect that roadway. Where we can, we try to go in and address those issues. And so when I talk about pre-overlay concrete, that's exactly what we're doing, is we're trying to take care of that concrete curb and gutter to protect our investment in the roadway. If we don't take care of that concrete curb and gutter, kind of to your point, we end up with water intrusion, and it just diminishes the lifespan of that roadway. And it's very much the same with companion drainage, whether it's pipes under a road or roadside surface drainage. We try to address all that when we do our paving programs.
Yeah. I have more questions, but I'll save them for our orientation when we make that happen. So,
Okay, thank you.
I will just, I'm glad that you went back to these slides because this is always an interesting one. And every year, we see that different districts get a little more attention at different times. And that's just the nature of trying to spread that around. And so I know that in the past, we've seen huge amounts in my district. And then, another year, we are able to kind of focus on different areas. District 5 is always the interesting one on here. And so I know that for folks watching, like, why is there no preservation being done in District 5? Well, there are very few miles in District 5. They're probably all in Commissioner Nelson's where she lives, because that's a little unincorporated pocket. But it's, we do our best to try and see that spread around and that we're taking care of all areas. So I always tell people I represent District 2, but I have to be fair to all of the county. And so we work very hard to make sure that all of the county is well taken care of. So I appreciate this. I think it's so important that we continue the work on raising that PCI. I'm so grateful that we have that measurement and for all of the work that you have done, especially on this preservation program. I think the analogy of the vehicle and changing the oil is a good one. I also think when you're talking about those super high PCI numbers is, sometimes we always have a little bit of work to do on the house. There's a project here or there, and that's just because we don't have unlimited funding in our homes. So sometimes things are getting to the place where we want to replace them, but we've got to wait another year. Maybe it's the washer this year, and it's the hot water heater next year, right? And we have to plan for those. Rarely ever do we get to the point where everything in our house is brand new. And it's really, I think of it the same way with our roads. There's a sweet spot where we're being responsible with our dollars, but not going out and asking for a lot so that we can have brand new everything either. And I think our taxpayers will appreciate that. And I think it's a good approach to find that sweet spot where our roads are in that satisfactory range, but we're also not looking for extremely high taxes so that everything is perfect all the time. And I think that's a really good place to be for what our citizens have asked for. So I will just say thank you for the tremendous amount of work. The change from when I was a first year commissioner sitting here until today, the data-driven approach that has happened, the asset management that is leaps and bounds in the last few years. So just, I know there's been so much work that has gone into that, a whole mindset shift in public works. So I'm really grateful for that work from you and also from our county administrator, who I know has also been a huge part of making that happen. A few years ago, I had a really hard time understanding how I could look at citizens and say, yeah, we're making progress. And we now have measurable ways to do that. And I know I am personally seeing it greatly in the unincorporated areas, the roads that I've driven, that there is a noticeable difference in what is happening. So thank you for your work.
Well, thank you for those kind words. And I'd be remiss if I didn't point out the men and women of the Public Works Department, truly public servants, truly care about their community and truly care about what they're doing with taxpayer dollars and truly trying to stretch those dollars as far as possible in order to bring good quality infrastructure to bear. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Any additional comments or questions? Okay, thank you so much. With that, we are ready to move to facilities and strategic infrastructure with Mr. Olson.
Morning, Commissioners. Brian Olson, I'm your Executive Director for El Paso County Facilities and Strategic Infrastructure Management, and I'm glad to be here today to go over our 2026 critical needs requests. So El Paso County, Facilities is an internal services department, and we indirectly support every office and every elected office in every department in the county, be it from our ADA division, ensuring that we have equal access for customers that are coming in to get services to county facilities and services, but also with we assist with the clerk and recorder's office by installing new ballot boxes, to even going to we assist the coroner's office. If you remember when we had and it was over a year ago, but when we had the Penrose mortuary situation, we actually helped to stand up a morgue for them, for all the bodies that were coming in for that. So a lot of people don't realize and how much we really support every county department and elected office. it's no surprise that because we're facilities, our primary focus is infrastructure, the first objective. And I want to give a shout out. I appreciate both Brett and Sunny's leadership and assistance to help us to, we've been working really hard the last 2 years, and we've completed a master plan to include building assessments in this last year. So the master plan, we've worked with each one of our departments and each one of our elected offices to look at how they're using their facilities today and how we need to make sure our facilities are meeting their needs, but also well into the future. So as part of that master plan, we also did building assessments and to look at what are our true conditions of our buildings and looking at, not just today, but where we need to be at 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now to make sure that these buildings continue to function and to serve the county's needs. So Commissioner Geithner, as you had mentioned, the asset management plan, that's also part of what we've been doing. So we take the data from our master plan, from these building assessments, and it kind of funnels into our asset management plan to help us to make good financial decisions, sustainable decisions that are based on data that helps us prioritize what buildings we're going to be taking care of based on the limiting funding that we have. But we also look at not just the building, the condition, but what kind of services are being offered in that building. So you wouldn't be surprised to know that we'd probably have a higher priority for the jail as to like maybe a maintenance shed or something like that. So we've completed that. We've completed that master plan and the assessment plan this year. The other thing is service quality, because again, I'd mentioned we're an internal services department. We have to make sure that each building functions to make sure that each department, each office can offer their services to our community. And often it's to make sure the building functions for them to do that. So I'm actually coming today with 4 critical needs requests. The first 2 are actually roof replacements. So both the roofs I'm talking about, the first one here being the critical need number 1 is for the Public Works Department. That roof was originally in 1995 and it has passed its life expectancy and it only leaks when it rains. But I would say that if you look, we have 2 roof replacements we're requesting money for, and they are different amounts. Each project is unique. Okay, so the roof actually for Public Works is almost twice as large as the roof here for Centennial Hall. We've also the materials to replace these roofs are different from roof to roof, but also different roofing systems. We had to go into, we had to do infrared scans in each one of these roofs to see for heat blooms. So what happens is if we see heat in there, that means there's water has entered the building and entered the insulation. So we're gonna have to in there when we replace the roof, open up certain parts of the roof and replace insulation. So each project is unique. So and so is the cost to do such. So again, 1.6 million for the Acres roof and 1.4 million for the Centennial Hall roof. And then we also have 2 parking lots. The parking lot for DMV East, which is over on Powers and Airport, it's the original parking lot. I don't have a lot of great pictures here because parking lot and roof pictures, they're not a lot of fun to see. But I can tell you these parking lots, they are original and they're in bad shape. There's trip hazards. They look poorly. They look poorly on how we're maintaining our buildings too. And then also the Criminal Justice Center, which is the jail, looking at $900,000 to replace that as well. And both of these parking lots are both help to support employees and the citizens as they come to access services within the county facility. So this is our budget. A lot of people don't realize we have our facilities management, which is mostly salaries and salaries and contracts like cleaning contracts, filters, things like this. The mailroom is actually under the county facilities department. Utilities comes under facilities. Major maintenance, it's a separate budget. We can like elevators, things like that. We maintain that, and then also ADA and parking. So the difference in our, really from last year's budget and this year's budget is going to be that 4 million request for critical needs. And that's it. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those for you.
Commissioner Williams?
I just wanted to check, does the roof leak when it's not raining?
Well, if it's snowing, it might leak.
Okay, just checking. I'm hoping it only leaks when it rains or snows. Thank you.
Yes.
I also have a couple of roof questions. So obviously, we're talking about roofs that are currently on that were constructed quite a while ago. Are there improved technologies? Hail comes to mind, or things that that we're seeing will have maybe more longevity in the future? Does that impact any of our just thoughts on how those major events will impact us in the future?
Materials do improve. And so I'll say that as we replace these roofs, we actually will get a 25-year warranty. So these will last us, if you look at the amount of lifespan we got out of these roofs, they're more than 25 years, but we take good care of them. But materials and technology does change, and this is in line with what that is. But, there's the roof on like this building is a bitumen roof top, and it's kind of a cover, and where it's a hot tar on top of acres. There are different types of materials, and take different applications to do it.
And then my other question has to do with utility costs that were there in the budget. There's been a lot of discussion about green energy mandates and the cost of generating energy. So could you just speak to that briefly on where we think that's going and how that is impacting this year or next year's budget?
Certainly. So we've done a lot of work within county facilities to improve technology. I think the biggest one is LEDs that most people notice. So we actually have 2 grants that we've been approved for, and we're finally moving forward on those where we can start. We have federal grants replacing LEDs within our buildings, which is about a 30% cost savings right off the top. And so we've done a lot of things to help run our buildings more efficiently, from sequencing on how we sequence our HVAC systems to even when you replace equipment. So replacing elevators, replacing newer technology, older technology is more energy efficient also. But I can say that our budget for utilities hasn't changed a whole lot in the last couple of years, but I can tell you the costs have gone up and up and up. So for us to say, so it shows that how efficient we've done with our processes, because I'm not asking for more money for utilities. So we'll continue to do that. So there is a lot of pressure from, different administrations on the federal side change that, but on the state side, there's a lot of pressure on green energy applications. As you know, Commissioner Geithner, you've been in part of these as we've kind of gone to battle with the state on their requirements.
No, and I appreciate you pointing that out. That's the case kind of, I think, in many of the areas where, yes, costs are increasing, but we look for the efficiencies that make sense for us so that we're not actually spending more, even though we're utilizing. Yes, so I just appreciate that. I'm hopeful that it stays that way. Very worried about some of the newer things that we are seeing and just the impacts as we kind of get that low-hanging fruit, as you will, of like those LEDs and those things. And will that eventually catch up with us here in the next year or two? So be interesting to watch and see. But thank you for looking for those efficiencies so that we can continue to provide those services at a low cost to citizens.
And we look for financially responsible ways to make energy efficient projects, and we can do it without spending $100 to save $1.
Right. Thank you. Any additional questions at this time? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay. Next, we have Rubel Henderson from the Citizens Outreach Group.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today. I wanted to mention a few things in terms of what is our mission. Our mission is to be able to communicate effectively the values and the activities of the Board of County Commissioners out to the public, and in an efficient way also bring feedback back to the county commissioners. And so we act as a liaison group for that communication channel. There are a number of things that we do. Here I can click through. Here you can read at your own leisure all the different things that we do, but I do want to highlight one or two things here. So one of the big things is that we look at the progress on the county strategic plan. Now we have just received an email with a link to the report for the current update to that progress. So as a board, we haven't yet reviewed it this year, but that's happening now actively because we literally just received that email. But also the activity of the public safety tax, we have done that review as well. And looking at the county's 5-year financial roadmap, which we just went through the budget for next year yesterday. So we have either accomplished or are in process with everything that is tasked of us. There are two major things that our board participates in throughout the year. And one of them is working directly with you to schedule the town halls that you guys do throughout the community. That has been, in the last year, added to what we do, and I think it's been a fantastic addition. I think it's brought our advisory board much closer in communication with you guys. So I think that's been a positive. We get a lot better sense of what it is that you guys are actually saying to the community, and it gets us more active in your participation out with the community. So I think that's been a fantastic addition to our tasks, and I look forward to seeing that actually grow in terms of our involvement in helping to produce those public events. The other major event that we put on each year is Citizen College. So we just thank you for each of the commissioners who were involved in that this year. So we just wrapped on Saturday the 2025 edition of Citizen College. And I just wanted to give a couple of highlights year over year from last year to this year. So this is the third year that we have conducted Citizen College since COVID shut down, well, lots of operations. And so in that time also, you had almost a complete turnover of the board. And when I'm saying that time, I'm meaning from 2020 till, where we are now, 2025. And as a result, almost all the experience had been lost from putting on previous colleges. So the last 3 years have really been, in some ways, starting over and figuring out, like, how do we do this again? And so we've learned a lot of lessons over the last 3 years, and I think it's really culminated in the event that we put on this last week. So one of the big lessons that we learned last year was that we did not make a strong enough push from a marketing perspective. That's not to denigrate the efforts of the marketing team for the county. They were fantastic through this whole thing. I think we lacked the proper vision, and we as a board, as a COG board, lacked the proper vision that we needed to have, what it was really going to take to drive that attendance. So we took note of that last year and said, okay, we're going to put a much bigger emphasis on that this year, which we did. So in 2024, we had 50 people register. This year, we had 79 people registered, looking at a 58% increase in year-over-year registrations from the public. We also had an attendance last year of 28 people. And when I say attendance, what I mean is these are people who attended at least one session. It doesn't mean they attended all of them. In fact, I honestly don't even have the numbers right now in terms of how many people went to all 6 sessions last year. But in terms of how many went to one session at least, it was 28 last year of the 50 registrants. This year, we had 56. So it's 100% increase year over year in attendance. Then for this year, of the 56 that attended at least one, 19 attended all 6 sessions. That is more than many of our sessions had in attendance last year total. We had more people attending everything than we even had in individual sessions last year. So a very marked improvement. Also, I wanted to highlight county employees. This is also a really wonderful opportunity for county employees to get out of the division that they work in, which they probably know really, really well, and start to learn, well, what else do we do? What are these other divisions doing? what services are we offering the citizens of the county outside of, say, DHS? If I'm a healthcare worker. So we actually had 16, and I only have the numbers for this year in this case, but 16 people, county employees registered. Of those 16 registrations, 13 attended at least a single session, and 4 of them attended all 6 sessions. So again, relative to last year, which surely just talking numbers, this is really a good trend. And I think that we certainly have room for growth there, but it's a really positive trajectory. So I'm really very proud about that. And then the last thing that I wanted to highlight, stepping back from Citizen College and just to the board exclusively, is in years past, we have had half of the seats empty. So there's 11 seats on our board, and we would have maybe half filled. And of that half, we would have probably half of those active. And so you're trying to pull off something like Citizen College and all the coordination that happens for that, and you have roughly 3 or 4 active people on the board. That has dramatically changed but over the last couple of years. A lot of effort between Ryan and Paula and a lot of the coordination with you guys, that has become a very different picture today. So today, we actually have 9 members of the board on the board. We unfortunately had one step, my slide, I actually need to fast forward a little bit here. I say I currently have 10 out of 11 board seats filled. One resigned after I had already put this presentation together. And it was just an unfortunate personal circumstances that drove that. Great board member, would have loved to have had them on continuing on the board. But that is another major reason why we've had such better outcomes of, this year versus previous years, is we have a lot more activity, people really engaged and passionate about what we're doing. So thank you very much, and I will open this up to questions from the board.
Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Nelson.
So you're just presenting on how it went. There isn't a budget request with this?
I would like a 250% increase of our budget, please.
Of 0.
Of 0.
Okay. Just that this is slotted within the budget. I just wanted to confirm that
Yes.
there's not a funding request here. Okay, thank you.
Great. Okay, doesn't look like we have any additional questions, but I'll just say thank you for the tremendous amount of work that I know the entire COG board put into trying to share the story of what the county does. So really, really appreciate the work that was done, and thank you for taking the time to be here today.
Thank you, Commissioner Redner.
Thank you.
Commissioners, I just wanted to add one thing to Mr. Henderson's presentation, was just that the Citizens Outreach Group is the group that we rely on to provide some citizen oversight over the budget. And so we present the progress of the county's budgeting plans to them. I present to them annually on the outcome of what we did. So the audit results, they go through those. We talk about budgeting, presented the preliminary balanced budget to that entire group, had a lot of really good questions, a lot of digging into the whys and hows and what we're doing in our budget. So we asked that the Citizens Outreach Group come and present in front of this board annually as part of the budget process, just to let you know that a citizen group has done oversight and looked at that budget. And so then we asked them to come and let you know that they performed those duties that are in their bylaws and the kind of the charter for their group. But other than that, that is all we have for today's budget hearings. The next time we meet on the budget is on Tuesday, November 4th, where we will do our final direction hearing. That hearing is a non-action day. As always, we invite citizen comment, public input, but we will be in front of the commissioners to ask for direction on if you would like changes from the preliminary balanced budget to make changes to adopt the original adopted budget. Then in the interim time, my team will take any changes that are made at that hearing, put it together with any other things that we know about that are going on with revenue changes or anything like that, and then come back to you on December 9th with a final package ready to adopt.
Okay. Thank you so much for all of your work on keeping us together, and we're on time, so that's almost a miracle. Okay, with that, we are ready to move to item 11.
Item number 11 is the addendum, and there are no addendums today.
Item 12.
Item 12 is the executive session, and there is no request for executive session.
Okay, with that, we've come to the end of this agenda, and this meeting is adjourned.